What's going on, everybody? It's your boy back with another reaction video. I'll be reacting to 5 horror stories, animated compilation of September Part 2. So, I will be putting the link to this video in the description, to the original video. So, you can go look at it yourselves if you like. Anyway, since you're here, you might as well look at me. Here we
I met a terrible creep at a McDonald's restaurant. I was running errands with my husband one day when I was 6 months pregnant. The day started out normal as we took the subway together. All of a sudden, I felt nauseous and I could feel that I had to vomit immediately. I quickly gave my bag to my husband and told him I had to run to the nearest bathroom. I bolted away at the next stop as I could not hold it in any longer.
Damn, I'm surprised
As
she
I
held it.
exited the underground, I ran into the nearest restaurant, a McDonald's. I hurried to the bathroom, where I passed a middle-aged man who was standing at the entrance of the bathroom. I paid no attention and pushed past him to get in. As I finally arrived to the bathroom, I immediately started puking. I never felt so sick my entire life. That's when the door handle of the bathroom started moving. I quickly pushed the door to keep it closed and yelled that it was busy, but the person on the other side pushed back.
Go lock it.
As that person managed to push harder, I saw the guy that was at the entrance. He had curly hair. I freaked out and slammed the door shut and started yelling for help. The man was insistent and kept trying to get in.
The fuck?
I started puking again, so I was left with trying to hold the door with my foot as he kept banging it harder and harder. I continued yelling in the direction of the window of the stall as I heard people saying that there was a girl who needed help. Suddenly, the guy stopped banging the door and everything got quiet. I tried to calm myself down while still holding the door shut just in case. Then, I saw curly hair and a hand trying to get me from under the door, which had a pretty large gap.
Oh, she's in a stall.
I started screaming again as I started kicking his face. At this point, I was desperate. I had no phone, no bag, and my husband was probably roaming the city looking for me. Then, I heard a man yell, and the creep suddenly getting away quickly. I kept the door shut when I heard a male voice telling me to come out and that it was okay. I reluctantly opened the door to find the manager of the McDonald's confused and shocked. I told him what happened and he called the police. With all the commotion, my husband finally found me.
Why did he run off the train
When
too?
the police arrived, I gave the police a description, but they never found the guy.
Like your pregnant wife bolts off the train and she had to throw up and you just walk off.
It was the summer before 9th grade. I was at my friend's family pool party, and there were tons of people there. At one point, while my friend, let's call her Lily, went to get some sodas for us, a man came up to me. I didn't recognize him, but since it was my friend's party, it made sense for me to not know everyone there. He smiled at me. He looked as though he hadn't shaved in days, and his eyes never looked quite directly at me. I stepped backwards, feeling uncomfortable. "Hello," he said.
I've been like, fuck off.
"Hi," I replied. "What's your name?" he asked.
None ya.
I supposed that a first name wouldn't hurt, seeing as we were surrounded by tons of people in my friend's backyard.
It's a backyard.
I said. "What's yours?" "Rick," he replied smoothly. "Are you having fun with Lily?" Some of my discomfort eased. "I'm her parents' friend," he continued, stepping closer to my face. His eyes weren't focused, and his breath smelled like alcohol, even though it was early in the day. I grew even more uncomfortable and stepped away, waving goodbye awkwardly.
We're like, what's that? Like,
When I
point
turned
down
around,
and just
he
uppercut.
was gone. I told Lily about this, and she mentioned it to her parents. Her parents said that they didn't know Rick, which kind of freaked me out. But they told me that it could have been one of their friends who brought him over. So I shrugged it off and assumed everything was fine. After the party ended, Lily and I were having a sleepover at her house. Her parents had gone over to visit her elder sister to take some leftovers to her, since she had not been feeling well and couldn't attend the party. So we were home alone with her elder brother. Lily and I were playing a game in her bedroom when her dad called her. He asked her to please go and turn off the pool lights, since he had forgotten. Lily agreed and we stepped outside into the backyard. I waited on the back porch, reading a text from another friend, while she went to turn off the lights. Once she was finished, we stepped back inside, locking the door, and went back upstairs to continue playing our game. At one point, Lily asked me to make sure the curtains were closed properly, and when I did, I happened to look outside, and I noticed that all the pool lights were on again. Lily? I asked, getting a strange feeling. You turned off the pool lights, right? Yeah, I did.
Well, yeah, you were
She
there.
replied,
You
coming
saw the
close.
lights go off.
Now there was a figure swimming laps in the pool, even though we couldn't see his face. It's probably just Cody, Lily replied, speaking of her brother. Come on, let's go scare him. We walked down to the pool and slid open the back door. Waiting behind the bushes, we could see the top of his head bobbing in the water. We were going to jump out and scare him at any moment. Then I looked up at one of the windows of the house. The curtains were open. Suddenly, I saw the face of Cody illuminated as he turned on his bedroom
Oh, shit.
lights. I grasped Lily's arm, and we both knew the person in the pool was not, in fact, Cody. We hadn't brought our phones with us in case we would get wet, and if we ran back around, there was a chance the stranger could see us before we got back to the house. We tried to wave to Cody, but he couldn't see us. Suddenly, splashing in the pool stopped. My heart dropped and I could hear each of my panicked heartbeats. A hand suddenly gripped my arm and flung me forward, and I screamed,
Sheesh.
and Lily did as well. I looked up, and there was Rick. His facial expression I will never forget. I've never seen someone with such a creepy smile.
What are you doing?
I yelled, and soon my mouth was filled with water as he chucked me in the pool,
Sheesh.
and he actually held me underwater. I choked for breath and realized he had grabbed Lily's arm as well, although she wasn't in the water. He was strong and clearly ill. He yelled, "Time to swim!" Somehow Lily managed to kick him in the face hard enough to run away, slamming the door behind her. He continued to hold me, laughing as I flailed for breath. Just as I felt I was about to die, police sirens were heard on the surface. He picked me up
Damn.
and threw me on the ground, breaking my arm.
Oh.
He ran away. The police came and questioned me, but he was never found. I will never forget that moment. I thought I was truly going to die. Nor will I forget those creepy, unfocused eyes. From then on, I've been terrified to be outside at night, especially in a pool.
Fuck.
I was driving home from work one night around 9 p.m. midweek, so the roads were quiet.
His voice.
As I was driving downhill, I heard a sound that was like a jet engine roaring behind me. The next thing I know, a car goes flying past me going twice the speed limit. It looked like a fairly old and crappy car, and the car started to get the speed wobbles. And then one of the tires came flying off and rolled at high speeds downhill while the car spun out and crashed. I stopped my car to make sure whoever was inside was okay. A guy got out of the car and looked over at me, and then started moving extremely quickly towards me. I don't know why, but I hit my internal locks on the car, which was fortunate, because no more than 2 seconds later, the guy started grabbing at the driver's side door and smashing on my windscreen with his fists trying to get in. I'll never forget the look he had in his eyes. I put my foot down on the accelerator and drove off back home.
He just fell out.
I decided to swap cars once I got home and drove back to see what was going on.
I wouldn't.
I saw 2 fire trucks and about 4 police close to where the incident happened. When I got back to the crash site, the guy was no longer there, so I decided to head home. The next day of work, I was online and bored reading the news when I saw an article that shocked me. The article was about a guy who had been in a police chase for 1 hour, and the police stopped chasing him because it was becoming too dangerous. Turns out the guy was high on meth, had stolen a car an hour's drive away, and had been in a hot pursuit since. After crashing the car, the guy apparently crossed to the other side of the road and hailed the first car that appeared, which was a taxi. He got into the taxi and stole it. In the process, he pushed the driver out of the driver's side door, and the driver got stuck and dragged at speeds. The driver died from the incident. I called the police and had a detective assigned to me.
Damn.
He fingerprint checked my car and got a statement. I had to testify in the Supreme Court as a key witness in a murder trial. The guy got 30 years, and they told me that my testimony was one of the main factors in convicting him. I often think back to that night and wonder if I hadn't...
My name is Milo. I'm 14 years old, but this happened about a year ago. One day, I was having a sleepover with my 2 best friends, Ben and Michael, to celebrate Ben's birthday. Ben wanted to go camping and have a bonfire, so we all set up our tents for a fun night.
Never been
When we
camping.
set everything up, we
camping.
talked about the usual teenage boy stuff, sports, cars, and girls. As the night progressed, Ben began to tell us about a man from our town who was on the run from the police. He said that the man lurked around in the darkness and kidnapped teenage boys. He grabs you by the legs and drags you through the forest while looking for more kids to prey on, Ben said. We all burst out with laughter at how ridiculous it sounded. Nothing like that would ever happen in our town, right? At least, that's what we thought. We all started to feel sleepy and decided to call it a night. During the middle of the night, I got out of my tent to use the bathroom on one of the trees nearby. But when I was done, I looked back to see a man warming his hands on our fire, and 3 small, dark figures hid behind him, each looking like a starved child. I screamed in fear, waking my friends who freaked out when they saw him. We sprinted out of the forest to warn people about the man, but nobody in town believed us. When it was light outside the next morning, we went back to the forest to collect our gear and go home. Everything was there, but a note was left on the ground. It read,
"Almost got you."
"Grabs you by the legs and drags you," with a smiley face drawn at the end. We alerted the police and never went back to that forest again.
About 10 years ago when I was 12, I would always go into the nearby woods with my friends for most of the day. One night, we left pretty late. Usually I got home before dark, but today, I knew I wouldn't make it back, and I already knew my parents would be mad at me. We were walking in a group for a few blocks,
and playing
a couple of my
Grand Theft
friends
Auto
split from us to go to their house. I started to notice that a van kept driving past us. I didn't think anything of it.
But you
Then
noticed.
my last friend split to go to her house. I had about 5 to 10 minutes left until mine. Then I see that van again, and it pulled up right beside me and stopped. The driver rolled down the front window. Then she told me that she can't find her son and she's been looking all evening. And she asked me if I seen him. I looked and I said no. Then she asked me if I wanted to get in her van to help find him.
I'd be
I
like,
said
"Oh,
no
hell
again,
no."
and I looked forward. Then she asked me, am I sure? I didn't answer and I started to walk faster.
I'm like, bitch, yes.
Then all of a sudden, there was some guy in her back seat that said, Mr. fucking Snatcher. I looked at the van for a split second
Shit.
as the woman looked in the back seat and she sped up to park on the side of the street. I started running.
Run, yeah, run.
I heard the doors open and shut on the van,
Boom.
but I didn't look back until I got home. Nobody followed me. I told my parents and we called the
Just
cops.
fucking grab her.
I never missed curfew after that.
Crazy motherfuckers. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed my reaction. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you did not, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Make sure to comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.